You ever seen somebody behave in a way that doesn't make sense until later on you find out why they were actually behaving in that way? You know, like you hear this stuff all the time. Somebody finds out that their better half is fooling around on them, and then they start to think back and retrace the steps, and they go, God, there were clues there the whole time. I should have known. There were clues there the whole time. If I would have paid close enough attention, I could have spotted those clues. I could have seen what was happening. But unfortunately, too little, too late, and now I just got to deal with the fact that somebody fooled around on me with the neighbor's dog, you name it, whatever their preference, that's how it went down, and that's the way this thing works. So I say all that to say this. We should have known something was coming up in the NFL. Should have known. All the signs were there. Sending members of the league to talk to players about the dangers of gambling. Tom Brady doing a video to send out to rookies coming into the league talking about how it's not worth it. You know, guys, it's not worth it. You know, don't ruin your career by gambling on the NFL. All the other little things that have come out. You got coaches and players saying, yeah, we just felt like a lot of this stuff we weren't really all that educated on, you know, kind of confused, kind of, you know, trying to figure this whole thing out. Don't really have a clear understanding as to what the rules are. And then Adam Schefter drops this little gem yesterday, courtesy of ESPN, that Isaiah Rodgers of the Colts, you know, the kick returner / defensive back who got popped for gambling. Well, him and a handful of other players are expected to receive season-long suspensions for violating the NFL's gambling policy. Yeah, we should have known something was coming up. Now, we knew about Isaiah Rodgers. All right, and I backed Isaiah Rodgers on this show. Guy's a kick returner. You seen what the league's doing to kick returners? I don't blame him for trying to have some supplemental income. What do you want him to do? Drive an Uber or Lyft? No, he's looking around going, hey, if I've got some intel on some of these teams, I'm going to go ahead and place a bet and try and make some of this money back the league's taken from me out of my back pocket and front pocket because they want to ruin the kickoff. But then it's all these other players. Albert Breer, who we're going to talk to later on this show, he's said for a little while now, yeah, it feels like there's some other guys that are going to pop up here. It feels like there's some other suspensions that are coming up. It feels like this isn't just an isolated incident when it comes to Isaiah Rodgers. And, of course, this is the same offseason. You got members from the Lions like Jamison Williams. You got a member of the Washington Commanders who got popped. You got Calvin Ridley coming back, and he's talking about all the dangers of gambling and why it's not worth it and why. We should have known there's something else going on here, and something else was coming up around the corner. Should have known. All the signs were there. What I'm wondering is how big are the names going to be that get popped and the names that get released? And furthermore, how many of those names are we not going to hear about? Like, I want to know, like, I thought it was a little strange that of all the people you would have doing a tutorial or a video on what not to do when it comes to sports betting, that it would be Tom Brady. Like, why would you go so over the top? Like, the comparison I made was, if you've got a little fire on the stove, you don't bring an airliner to drop fire retardant on the entire house. You either turn the stove off, you fan it down with a rolled up newspaper or magazine, or you bring one of the house fire extinguishers out. To have a tanker drop a bunch of pink stuff all over the house to put out a stove fire seems a bit drastic. And it seemed like Tom Brady being brought in to do some video to try and warn players about gambling seemed a bit drastic. And now we know why. Like, what if it's a quarterback? What if one of the names that comes out, one of these names that Adam Schefter is talking about, which is expected to be released this week, which, by the way, that leaves today and tomorrow. Like, what if one of those names that comes out all of a sudden it's a quarterback? Now you've got a guy who's got an intimate role and an impact on the game on the outcome of the game who all of a sudden is placing wagers on NFL games. Now, I don't think it's as drastic as the fix is in or these guys are trying to, scam the league and scam the fans. Like, I don't think it's a Tim Donaghy where they're admitting that they're changing the outcome of games by betting on games. But for the NFL, if this is all about optics, if you're trying to cater to the optic police, there are two things that need to happen here. One, you got to lay the hammer down and let everybody know everything is going to be fine. We take your gambling money. We're willing to work with the gambling companies. We're willing to bring in this extra revenue. And with the team in Las Vegas right now, we want to make everybody aware that all of this is on the up and up and we're fine. All right, so that is the first thing you do. The other thing you do is look around and go, all right, how can we get past this as fast as possible? All right, do we have any big announcement we can drop right after all this? Right after the NFL comes out and announces all these names? Like, what are they going to do next? Give Sunday ticket for half off? What's the plan? Like, if you're Roger Goodell, because this is the way they work. They've been sitting on these names for a long time. They've been sitting on all these names. And who's been placing wagers on over-unders and total rushing yards for a player here? Like, they've been sitting on these names for a while. They've been trying to formulate when's the best time to drop all this. And if they know that some of these names could be damaging to the league, they're going to try and do whatever they can to steer people in another direction. They're going to do the late week news dump, whatever you can call it, if that's even a real thing at this point. But the NFL's already got a plan B to try and steer everybody away from the fact that you got some players out there that may or may not be degenerate gamblers. And they've got all these 6 rules they drop out. And, well, players can't, can't walk through a casino. You can't do this. You can't. It's like, okay, I mean, you got a Pro Bowl in Las Vegas. Other than the fact that you've got a Pro Bowl in Las Vegas, you got a Super Bowl coming up in Las Vegas, and you've got a professional team in Las Vegas. The only other issues you got with Las Vegas is whether or not Alvin Kamara's waiting for his floor on an elevator and whether or not he beats your ass on the way there. That's really all you got. Other than that, everything should be fine. But this is a year where you're bringing the Super Bowl all the way to Las Vegas. The home base, ground zero of gambling. And the offseason before, you've got yourselves a gambling scandal. And like I said, I don't think it's as drastic as a bunch of players dictating the outcome of games. I don't think it's as drastic as a bunch of players out there trying to scam the league and scam the fans. But I do think it's bad enough that the NFL has been trying to get ahead of this the entire time, and we should have read it from a mile away. Little crumbs here. Hey, what do you think about this? It's like when you are trying to ask for something as a kid, or even when you get married, you want a little getaway trip. You and your buddies want to go out of town for the weekend. All of a sudden, brand new dozen roses show up to the house. You're kind. Hey, don't worry about it. I'll take the kids to school. I got it. Hey, everything's fine. You just you butter them up a little bit, then you drop the bombshell on them. Hey, you mind if we go have our fantasy draft at a strip club? Is that cool? We're going to do it next Thursday. Thanks. The NFL has had this. The NFL's been bracing for this. The NFL's been leaving little crumbs along the way. And we've been scooping up Reese's Pieces off the floor at some house in California because the NFL knew the outcome is going to change some things. So away we go. Let's hope it's a big name. Let's hope we got a further scandal. And just for the record, any of you players out there that may be listening to this show that are wondering whether or not you're going to be judged unfairly by a bunch of nerds in the media who have never placed a bet in their life, not from this guy and not on this show. We support gambling on this show. And you know what? If you felt like you had to make some supplemental income because you were a special teams player or a guy returning kicks like Isaiah Rodgers, I support that too. All of us have had to work 2 or 3 jobs at one point or another. I was the rat at Chuck E. Cheese. I'm not here to criticize anybody for how they make a little bit of money on the side.